Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Bava Metzia daf Yud Tes. We are going to begin on the top of Yud Tes Amud Aleph, 7 lines from the top of the word Gufa, getting back to what we said in the previous daf. Matzah get isha b'shuk. Let's say a person is in the marketplace and he happens to come across a get. Now, the question, of course, is this get something that was written by the Baal and also given? Or perhaps he changed his mind and therefore it was never given. So what do you do? So in the situation where the husband says, yes, I gave the get, so yasel isha, then you should give it to her because he's admitting that he divorced her. However, if the husband does not admit to this, then don't give it to her, but also don't give it to him either. However, it does say that if the husband says, yes, this get was given, give it to her, no problem. But why? Why would he say that's okay? We should be concerned. Maybe the get was only written in the month of Nisan. However, he didn't actually give it until the month of Tishrei. So it's very possible that even though, again, we have the get, and he's admitting that it was given, but it may have been written and given on different times. So, if that's the case, for the Gemara, va'ozol bal zavin, peri medisim tishrei. Let's say the husband was selling peros from Nisan until Tishrei, which is between the time the get was written and actually given. Umafkili gita, diksab ben Nisan. So then all of a sudden, people are going to look at the get and say that they're actually divorced from Nisan, v'yasel mitra v'kucha shel kedin. Because the husband, Chayra, has rights, as we know, to eat peros all the way until Tishrei, because the get was actually given until Tishrei. So, because of that, she may end up taking from the kucha shel kedin, because they'll say, this person kept having these rights to the peros, which apparently he is entitled to those rights, and he was involved in business transactions. However, she's going to end up showing, no, look at this get. It says that it was written and presumably given also in Nisan, and therefore he had no right to have done any of these sales, and therefore she's going to end up taking back all these different things that he sold, all those business transactions, because people are just going to assume that it was written and given on the same day. So paid is shopper. If you hold that the moment that the husband has interest in divorcing her, which certainly would include the time that the get is written, even if he gave the get much later, it doesn't matter. So then the truth is, once he wrote it, already he has no right to be able to deal with her peros, and therefore it would be kedin. She would be able to take b'tarif from the lukuchos kedin. What are you going to say? If it's true that you actually have all the way until the get was given, so shouldn't we be concerned about this? It says like this: that if she comes in this situation, I'm reading the Lord, we're going to ask her the question. I'm going to say, we want to know, when did you actually receive the get? So if she's able to prove that it was actually given on the same day in the month of Nisan, good. Then she'll be able to collect from the lukuchos. However, if somehow there's only witnesses that it was given later on, so then the matter would be resolved. So therefore, we're not concerned of this chashash, because we will force her to be able to bring proof. So my shnam is shtar chayiv, but we don't find this when it comes to a shtar chayiv that we could just do such a thing. That not, as we learned previously, masa shtar chayiv. Let's say you find a document which says that someone owes $1 million. So So the Mishnah over there said that if there's a achrayas nechasim, so if there's land, so we don't want to give it back, because there's a possibility that if it's achrayas nechasim, so that means if the document is written and then there was a transaction, so there is a lien on that land. And therefore, because we're not sure whether or not this is a good shtar or not, because it fell, and therefore it already shows that there's something wrong with this the shtar, the fact that you found it on the street may show it's not really done so properly. So Vakimino, we established over there, Vakimna, Kashachai Moida, the Lova agrees that he didn't pay it back. So just like the husband admitting that he gave it, so over here the Lova is admitting I still owe the money. So then what's the whole problem? Why can't you just give it the loan, give it back to the Malva? The answer is because of Qatar Vukukha Shokadin. Because the problem is maybe we should have this. We should be. We are concerned that maybe it was not written and given on the same time, and therefore in the interim, the truth is that the sale only really took place in Tishrei, and therefore all the transactions that took place before were not. There shouldn't be any lien on those properties because those transactions took place before this loan, and therefore you'll end up taking improperly. So the question is, Hasam Nami Lehadar, we should still return the shtar to the Baal Chayiv, to the Malveh, the Chiyasel Mitraf, when he comes to collect. We just have to prove, he has to prove when the shtar took place, not when it was written, but when it was given. But we say we don't say such a thing by Baal Chayiv. So why would we say it by Nisha? Why would we allow it there? Why are we not concerned about this when it comes to a get isha? So Amri Hacham Gabi get isha asilokech v'tava. Over when we're dealing with a get, it's possible that he's going to make a complaint. He'll say, Omar, hi dehadruha nihili rabbanon likita. Do you know why the rabbis gave you back the get? That's nothing to do with payros and collecting. There's a whole other more logical reason why the rabbis decide to give you a get. Mishum deloi tiagin. V'teisif, we don't want you to remain as an aguna, right? It's for aguna purposes, so that this way you'll be able to get remarried. That's the only reason why you receive the get. However, when it comes to you, now you want to collect from Lukuchos, no, then you have to bring a raya. The fact that you have this get doesn't mean that the date that it was written is the day that it was given. It's just that the rabbis want you to get divorced, so that this may be your only chance, and then otherwise, if we don't allow it, who knows, your husband's going to give another get anyway. So we're so concerned about that, we're going to be lenient and allow to get the get in this situation, as long as the husband admits that it was once given. And therefore, that is the whole reason why it was given to you, but not to prove that you can simply just collect. No, you have to prove when you receive the get. In this situation, the Baal Chayiv can't come and make this claim that the reason why the document was given back is what's the reason why a loan document was given back to you? There's no aguna. This is not marriage. These are a couple of guys that were involved in a business transaction. It's lemitrafu. It's in order to be able to collect. So Shema Mina, come Rabban b'milsa, the Rabban were pretty understood that the loan preceded my purchase, and that's the reason why. So therefore, because when it comes to this situation, we're not going to just allow him to ask. Instead, we're going to say that lo yachzer, we're not going to give it back. We will have this greater concern, therefore we're not going to give it back. Okay. Shkori avadim l'chul taravan matzashtar shichor b'shok. So you have this person who's an eved, but you found a document, which could mean that he was freed. So what do you do? So bizman sharal moedei asul eved. If the master says, yes, I freed him, so then you can give it to the eved. After all, the master's saying he's free. However, the master says, no, I never freed him. So in that situation, we cannot give it to anyone. So what do we see? Similar kashim. When the master agrees that he was freed, yasel eved, we can give it to the eved and he goes free. Okay. But why will we give this shtar shecher to the eved? Shouldn't we be concerned? Maybe again, the master wrote this freedom document in the month of Nisan. However, but for whatever reason, he didn't give it right away. So the shtar l'chora should only work at the time it was actually given. That's when he becomes free, and not at the date in which it was written. So what happened in between? Now the ozl avda, the eved's going to come, V'kan nechasim in Nisan v'Tishrei. Because the question is, the master is able to be involved in all different types of business transactions up until the time was given. However, the shtar doesn't say that. It says that it was in Nisan. So the Evid's going to say, hey, this person, my master, was involved in dealing with all these different transactions regarding me when I was already not a slave. So he had no right to be able to do that. The Ozol Harav, the master went, Zavninhu, and he sold these properties, Umapikli Shechor, and he went free. So he was allowed to, as he was really still his Eved, but the problem is that the reality is the document says that he was not his Eved, because it says that he was freed from the time of Nisan. So that is the issue. So it's really the same question. So why would we just give it to the Eved? Because who says that it was given the same time it was written? So now there's a machlokus in Gittin that one says it's actually good if you're an Eved, you want to go free. You don't want to be a slave. After all, when you're free, you're mutter b'kahal Hashem. So since it's chus, says Rashi, the mishah shenichtav, from the moment that this document is already written, zoich b'shecher, you're freed. Delchim matashtar get liyadei, when the get was given to your hands, nasa ben chayri l'mafreya, mishas chasima. So you were really already freed in Nisan. So it's true that this document, if it says Nisan, it actually is l'mafreya when you became freed, because when it was written, there was also people that signed it, and therefore those people are acting on your behalf in zachal adam shel b'fanav, because you don't want to remain a slave. So therefore, the truth is, you don't have to worry about when it was actually given, because in Mafreya, we say that you were already freed from the time of Nisan. Some actually say it's better to remain a slave. Why? So Rashi is because if let's say you're an Eved Kayin, so let's say your master's a Kayin, so now all of a sudden you're free, you can't eat Trum anymore. Okay. And if you're Yisrael, you're no longer allowed to be with a Shivcha Kananis. The Zilale or Shchichle Pritzale. When it comes to Shivcha Kananis, there's many of them, they're engaged in Pritzus. So for that, you may actually prefer to remain as an Eved, because you're mutter to be with a Shivcha Kananis, a non-Jewish maid servant. So therefore, for that reason alone, maybe you still want to be an Eved. Therefore what? Therefore, you're not going to be freed until it's actually given to you, that shtar. Which therefore the question goes back. Therefore, what do we see? That it was written and given on different dates. And therefore, there could be this confusion. So we say the exact same thing when it comes to a woman. They'll say the same thing because it's similar, because both of them, maybe the document, it's not an gun over here, but it's possible similarly that this may be the one chance for this guy to become free, just like there's one chance for this woman to no longer be married. So therefore, we're going to allow it. We're going to allow that document to be given back. However, when they want to collect and they want to take from Lukuchos, so then we'll actually have to they'll have to prove when it was given. Because again, the Eved's going to maybe say, hey, I was already free from Nisan. What's this guy doing? Selling different properties and things of that nature when I was really an Eved, but I wasn't an Eved, I was already free. Prove that you were freed from the time it was written. Then, in fact, you'll be able to collect. Okay, question 13. Why aren't we concerned? The document wasn't given until Tishrei. The Evan will go, so what happened is that the Evan will end up acquiring things, because in his mind he's going to say he's free, and he's allowed to acquire things. V'yozahol rav is of ninhu mapik l'shichur. The master is going to end up going and trying to take things away. The custom nisan v'katar v'kochashokadin. So again, since the Eved was really free, so therefore he starts doing transactions. But during this time, it's not so clear. Maybe he wasn't free, and therefore he didn't have the right to be able to do those things. So the question is, how do we understand this? So if that's a zchus le'Eved shiatz lecheres, then the edim of the chasimois, the signatures is the zchus, and therefore he's a ben chorin l'mafreya from the time of the signatures, and therefore it's Nisan. Even if it was given later on in Tishrei, it doesn't matter. Alternatively, as we said before, like the woman that when he comes to collect them lekuchos, we say prove when the shichur came to your hands. Was it in fact in Nisan, or perhaps it wasn't all the way down until Tishrei? Okay. Daiteki matan v'chul. Talk about ezuhi daiteki. What is this document which is for wills? So it's actually a breakup of these following words. Da teheg l'mekum liyos. That this shall be a valid transaction. She mace the chassav l'ploini. That if I die, then such and such a person is going to receive these possessions. That's what it's referring to. That this star will end up working, and this is, as Rashi says, divrei shchimira kiksum kumsurin dami. The famous words that when it comes to the words, even the mere words of someone who's dying, it's like it's actually written down. So that's what a daitaki is. Matana. What does it mean when it says a gift? And Rashi says matnas bari. This is considered to be a gift when you're healthy. Kol shekasaboy me'ayom la'achar misa. If you write from today until after I die, what does it mean? That Rashi says gufa karka kanei lo min hayoim. You actually will own the land from today. However, ein lo od rishus l'meichor. You can't sell it. I don't have rishus to sell it. Of litna or yarsha. However, I still have the rights to the Paris. So I say, you will get everything after I die. But in the meanwhile, you own the Gufa Karka, so therefore I can't sell it anymore. But you do not have rights to the fruits. I want to be able to continue the rest of my life being able to eat the fruits of the field. So that's a situation of the language of a matana. Miyoim liachar misa. So Alma, what do we say? We say iksi b'miyom liachar misa hudekani. It's only if it's mamash written down this language. V'ilo lo kani. But if you don't say it, you're telling me it's not going to work. So it's Rashi's bitmia. It's hard to understand. I understand. What if you gave the gufa karka and the peros right now? Of course that should work. So what do you mean? This is the only time it works? Is only when you only gave the gufa karka, but you kept the peros. But if you decide to give them everything right away, so Rabbi Hachakamer, where do we find the din of a gift of a healthy person is comparable to someone who is dying? That will not be kaina. That person will not be kaina until after the person dies. Just because again, a shchimira, he's only gifting it after he dies. Because the reason why he's saying this is because he knows that he's dying. But in the meanwhile, he doesn't want anyone to be kaina because he may live another few years, few weeks, whatever it may be. So So again, it doesn't mean that this is the only situation where a person who is a bari can be machna something. Certainly you can give right now, as a healthy person, everything. You can give your peros, your karka. We're talking about a situation where we see a situation that some of that which you're gifting will only be chal once you die, which is giving the gifting of the fruits, which is miyom lachamisa. So time doli amar tenu. The only reason why is you didn't say the word tenu. This is again regarding to a matanish kasmi machamisa. So ezuhi matnas barishi machamisa. Doli kani eloyachamisa kosher kasmi machamisa. So time of the lemer tenu. You didn't say give. Ha'amar tenu naisten, which is mashma. If you did say the word give. Says Rashi on Masnisin Parch. Okay, it's like we don't see this over here. This is a kasha on our Mishnah. The Toli Taima Mishani Oimer Nimach Alehem Shol Litnan. The Mishnah talks about giving versus not giving, which is mashma that if you said tenu, then you should give her minhu matzah daitekois. Let's say a person finds wills, apotekois. And apoteki is, when it comes to a loan, apotehekoi, that a particular field, let's say, is going to be designated specifically for a loan, matanos. Even though if they're shnei moedim, both of them agree that this took place, it still says you can't give it back. And as we saw, says Rashi, because what's the problem? Why can't you give it back? Maybe you wrote it, and you didn't actually give it over to them. Therefore, they're not zoich in the land. Because of a kasav l'achar, and then maybe afterwards you change your mind and decide to give it to someone else. So maso hashtar, and Taka gave over a star, was zachaboy, and the second person is zoichet. So that's why you don't want to give it. Even if shnei moedim, the truth is, okay, fine, they both wrote it, but again, it doesn't say. Even if you said tenu and everything in your moed that was given, it doesn't matter because we're a chayshid that maybe you were chayzer and you wrote it for someone else, and you gave the start to someone else, and the second person was zoich, not the first. It says Rashi, Uval Lachser Bo Min Asheni, and they're going to want to come and take it from the second guy, V'ratza Losei Sarishain, and to give it to the first. V'chafet Shimsu Lo Shtar Zeh She'atzienu Bebeistin V'nimsa Zman Shtar Shel Zeh Koidem Shtar Shel Sheni Yotzin Miyadi Bedin. You're going to end up taking it not kidin, but midin, from court. Because the first document, obviously we're dealing with the first person, it has a person's name, date, and then it has a second document with a later date. So if you just look at the two documents, you would assume that the first one is the one that will work, because you can't gift a field and then a week later gift the same field to a different person. That second gift is nothing because it's not yours to give. But what happened that you really didn't give it to the first person? You really wanted to give it to the second person. And Taka, the kinyan took place to the second person. But now all of a sudden, if you start giving back this document, it's going to become problematic because people are going to think that the first document really is the one that's acceptable. And therefore, for that reason, even Shishnei Moedim don't give it back. So, it's a kasha. Because we said the only reason why you don't give it back is because he didn't say tenu. But if he said tenu, then you would give it back. But over here, even if he's admitting, you still won't give it back. So Rabbi Abba bar Mamul kasha. It's not a question. As we continue to Yud Testament base. Ha b'bari ha v'ha b'shchimira. Says Rashi. Shahaya shtar matnas bari. The document is a gift from a healthy person. Teluk sibbe. Kidikatsir Vrami Ba'arse Kedin Shikaisim Ishtar Matana Shchimira. So what exactly does that mean? So when we're dealing with the din of a bari, so actually let's jump right into question 14. Matzah Daitikis Apatikis Matanos Alphabi Shishne Moidim Lo Yasel Zet. So Lamai Chashinan Delafika Lo Yaser Shtar Hamatanum. Shouldn't we be chayish not to give the star back even when they're both moida? So what's the problem? So he says like this, and then the Gemara's gonna actually say this a little bit more. But this is just a review, I guess. We'll see the question before we actually see the answer. Let's say you wrote the star to person number one, but you only wrote it to him. V'nimlach, and you change your mind, because of a nasal la'acher, and then you end up writing and giving it to someone else, the second person, which means it now belongs to the second guy. V'yata shuv chayzer bo, then you change your mind, even though you can't. V'ratza litnul rishon, and you want to give it to the first. Now the first you can't anymore, even though it was predated, but you never actually did it. You didn't actually give it to him. Gave it to the second guy. So this becomes a problem. Modehu shiachser l'rishon. So if he admits and it goes to the first person, the nimsa zeiche harishon hamukdam shlo kedin. It'll turn out, like as we said, that the first person is going to end up collecting shlo kedin because it's not really his. It really belonged to the second person. So this is basically what we said, and this is the problem. Now, again, it mentions one is a bari, one's a shchimira. Depends if it's a healthy person, which generally he has to actually has to be a stronger kinyan. However, when it comes to a shchimira, we're more lenient, so therefore maybe that's the teretz. Masnisin de katani ha'omer tenu noisnin. So he explains. Our Mishnah says gift that you will actually give it. So b'shchimira debar mehedarhu, because this person who is a shchimira is able to retract on his gift. What's exactly the whole issue over here? A person who is dying. Dilma kasva mikaru lahai. Maybe he originally was only written to the first guy. V'imlach, he changed his mind. He never gave it to the first guy. V'hader kasva nishachrina, then he wrote it to a second guy. However, he gave the shtar matana to guy number 2, which means taka, the second guy, is the real owner. So hashta kahader be mehahu. Now the shchimira wants to go back to number 1, Dihav Nihile, to give it to him. Now, Iba Matnas Bari, Yoivle, if let's say we're dealing with a Matnas Bari, the guy was actually healthy, that he's giving it to the second one. So, Leisle Pseida, the second person, there is no loss. The Chinafka Tarti Basraisa, the Chinafka Tarti Basraisa Zachi. The ha-haderbe mikamaisa. So what happened? There's no pseida by the shtar, because he changed his mind to give it to the first. So imat neshchimira nami yov nihile. If we're talking about a shchimira, then leisbab say there's no loss. The basraisa, the last one, zachi. The kahaderbe mikamaisa. He retracted from giving it to the first one. So therefore, our Mishnah is saying just as long as we're dealing with a shchimira, so therefore it's okay. So the first person was certainly at a time of the shchimira, which he could be chayzer. So if we're dealing with the case of a shchimira, we're lenient because he could be chayzer. Ki katani, and therefore not chayshish. That's the Mishnah. However, ki katani b'braisa, when the braisa says that no, the even alpha b'shishnei moedim lo yasul is babari. The law bar mehedarhu. He cannot change his mind. So once a bari says and gives it to the second one, that's it. It's a gift. Yamrin and dilma kastul haimi kara. Again, we'd have this. This is a legitimate concern that comes only to a healthy person. You could originally write it for the first person. Imlech lo yoivle, never gave it to him. V'hader kastul nishachrini wrote for a second guy yoivle, and you actually gave it to the second person. Hashta kahader be mahud yoivle. Now you want to retract from the second person. V'savar, and you think meheder lo matzina had ranabi. Since the second guy got the shtar from me, I cannot retract. Amrulhu, I'll say, Diano lahai yahavta, it was to this one I gave, v'nahadrin hile, and I changed. Ksava, I changed the writing to hihechi, to chimapikai ksava, when he takes out this document, the kadam zachabehu, that he will be the one who is kainit, because his document has the information on it that's earlier. El amrin le'anan hai kasvel yavin le'lahai. Rather, what we say is that that was written, we're not going to give it to him. Dilma michtav ksavas, dilma michtav kasvas. Maybe it was written. Me'ev lo yavis nihili. It was never given to him. V'yavta le'inish achrina. You're going to try to give it to another person. The kahadras bay. And once you after gave it to him, you want to retract. Ilo yavta le'inish achrina v'kaboyis. The meisvel high ksibbe hashta kasva achrina v'yoiv nehile. The yoiv le'inish achrina leisbab seida the kadam zachi. So in this situation, the second person, his shtar will end up being dated first. Okay, so again, basically this is the teretz that right now we're making this distinction that even though it's true, we could be concerned that this person may not have actually gifted to the first person, but only to the second, and then he's going to retract. He can't retract when it comes to a matnas bari, to a matnas bari. However, matnas shchimira he can. So therefore, by a matnas bari, which is the case of the brisa, we can't give it back because since he's not he can't be chayzer. So therefore, we're going to say that it goes to the second guy, and that we're concerned that if you give it back to the first guy, then he's gonna incorrectly collect. But by shchimira, that would be allowed. Maskvu Rav Zvid, tani. Both of them are talking about a daitaki, and a daitaki is referring to a will. Who writes a will? A shchimira. So what are you talking about? That one case is the case of a bari. One case is the case of the Mishnah is talking about a shchimira. In the case of the Brisa is talking about a bari. It's not true. The Brisa also talks about daitaki, which is the document of a shchimira. So you can't make that distinction. Elam Rav Zvid, haba shchimira. It has to be, both are about a shchimira. So the question is, if it's a shchimira, then how do we understand the Brisa? Why then do we say we can't give it back? So he said, "Lo kasha habe v'habebrei." One is referring to the shchimira himself, and that's our Mishnah. V'habebrei, one is the Brisa is referring to his son. When it's referring to his son, we will not return it. So now it breaks it down. When he says that you could give it back, it's referring to the man himself as the shchimira. Davar mehenderhu, because he can retract. The amrina, we say, even if you gave it to someone else, leisla pseida, there's no loss. The kama basra, but the first to the last one, basra zachi deha haderbe mikama, but he was chayzer. Ki katani tani. Therefore, again, he's allowed to be chayzer, the shchimir himself. Ki katani bebraisa al b'mishishnei moedim lo yakser. Why can't you give it back? Lo zev lo zeh is bevrei. We're talking about, it's referring to the son of the shchimira. Maybe your father wrote this. Your father changed his mind. He didn't give it to the first guy. He didn't give it to the second guy. Now your father changed his mind. Mahu, from giving it to the second guy, which is too late. He can't change his mind. Amar Luhu de Abi Yehoyev Leilahai Venesel Le Kasve Venesel Venapik Mine Dehu Zachi Veniflig Bahade Hilkach. Therefore, what? I'm reading the Leanan Hai Kasavel Yavin the one that you wrote, you didn't give to Lahai the Dilma Michta Kasve Avu. I mean, your father wrote it. Mia Lo Yavle. He didn't give it. The Yoyev Atl Inishachrin. Then he gave it to someone else. So call Hadarbi. El Ikushta Kamrin. If you want to tell me if it was the truth, the Yoyev Leavuch, that your father gave it the first time, zil at hashta ksibe star chrina, you should have another star. The inami loyoyivle avuha. If let's say the father did not give it, ukasve ad lina shachrini, gave it to someone else, which is the second guy. Leisbe pseida the kama ubasra kama zachi. So again, he should have written another star basically to verify that it was given to the first person, and therefore, because of that, if in this situation, the son obviously we're talking about a shchimira, yeah, but the father was the shchimira. So therefore, the reason why we have to say this case is really the similar idea is because if it's referring to a daitaki, it's obviously talking about a shchimira. So it's a shchimira in this case. Okay. All right. We're gonna go to the Mishnah, but let's see if there's a question over here. TA 5. Matzah shober bizmanchi. Okay, didn't do that. TB7. TB6. Matzah daitigas apotikoi sumatanoi selfbishishne moidimo yasos. What was that? Well, my cheshinon. Why are we chayish to lefikach lo yaser not to give it back? Afobishishne moidim. So ulai hu kaisav es ashtar matano rishain avahu lo noisin. Es zel ish rishon el l'sheni yachachu chayzer v'ratzalitin l'rishon el zeshlo kedin. Okay, that sounds pretty solid. TB6. Okay, all right. Okay, let's finish this up. Tanur bottom. Matzah shovar. Let's say you found a receipt. Now, the way it works is like this: the woman writes the shubar, the receipt, saying that she received her ksuba and gives it to the husband. So the husband should be the one who's holding the receipt, which is proof that he paid her the ksuba. So matzah shubur b'zman shisha moida that this receipt was given to the husband, her ex-husband. Yasul bal give it to the man. Ini isha moida yasul lo zeh lo zeh. If they don't admit, she doesn't admit, then taki you don't give it away to anyone. So it's the same question we've been asking. If let's say she admits, then Yachser Labal, give it to the husband. So what happens? Maybe this receipt was written in Nisan. But Nastan Tishrei wasn't given to him until Tishrei. Gozla Zavanto Ksuba B'Toiva Sana Nisan Tishrei, and she was enjoying the Toivas Hana from Nisan until Tishrei, because again it wasn't given over until Tishrei. Umapik Leil Shuber, and the Shuber came out, this receipt which Diksib in Nisan, which way back it was earlier paid back. The Ksub was already paid back. Maybe he actually didn't pay her Taka, not in Nisan. Maybe he paid her only in Tishrei. Yasal Mitav Kucha Shokadin. So basically what happens is that, again, people are going to think that this receipt was created and the husband paid it off paid off the ksuba in Nisan, and therefore they were completely disconnected. But the truth is, maybe they didn't get the money until Nisan, until Tishrei, until later on. And therefore, all the transactions that took place, you're going to see, says Rashi, V'yaksa kabal b'karka hamyuchedes ksubasa shulkadin. So the husband is going to make a chazakar, take control of the land which is connected to ksuba shulkadin, because he wasn't really supposed to have rights to it. So Marava, so on this is a similar question, Chafam Aleph, Shma mina isa l'deshmuel. It must be we hold like Shmuel. Says Rashi, Midolei chashina and lohachi. Since we don't have this concern, Di'i nami havi hachi shaber zachi bal hashuber shenichtav l'shma. We still say the husband will be zayich of this receipt, the way when it was written from the time of Nisan. That once a person writes a star, the chazer, and he retracts, umachol, and forgives the loan, machol of yarish meichel. So what does that mean? So says Rashi, Isa de Shmuel, you are moicher star chayv to your friend. The guy says, don't worry, you don't have to pay me back. So he's moichel the loiva, the borrower doesn't have to pay him back. Let's say she did this. Let's say she sold her ksuba, b'toiva sana, right? Someone bought her ksuba, hoping that one day he'll be able to collect on this document. So she sold this b'toiva sana in Iyar. So between the months of Nisan and Tishrei. The hainu shtar chayiv, so it's like a shtar chayiv. V'chazar machalta labal b'tishrei, and let's say she was meichel, so machal, so the husband has a right to get this land back with shapratar of baal, because the wife could have been meichel it. Abayi Amar feel tame leisil Shmuel. If you don't hold like the din of Shmuel, hachmai skinan b'shtar ksuba yetz b'tachas yada. We're talking about, says Rashi, Shemevi lefanenu, the get is in front of us. There's no potential concern to think that she sold this ksuba to someone else, because she's holding on to this star, so obviously it's hers. So that's not true, because it's possible there's actually two ksuvas, and therefore possibly, even though she's holding on to one, maybe there's another one in which is out there. No, first of all, we're not concerned of that there's two out there. Abaye holds the star. Okay, v'od shover b'zmanu tarif. He holds that the zman on the star is what causes the obligation. So Abaye holds the star is chal right away. Even if he didn't give it then, it's like the payment took place at the time it was written. So therefore, you could go back with the shuver with no chashash. You can return it. Abaye tamed yomer eda v'chasum of zachanloy. So we said that as long as you have even the signatures, similar to the get, so that as soon as it was written, it's considered to be chal. And therefore, even if it's true that maybe she sold it or something along those lines, so the din is that this receipt worked immediately, and therefore the husband has the rights to everything, because from that point on, it was all completed. Okay, we'll stop there. Let's see, maybe another question. Question TA5. Matzah shober b'zman she'shemayda yasol bal. Ma'du le'chashinan le'kasva litin b'nis v'nasta on Tishrei. So it was written this way: Umachar ksubasa. She sold her ksuba to someone else, but tovasana, and therefore v'tarfa kucha shlo kedin. And then all of a sudden she's going to be. They're going to end up collecting shlo kedin, because again it was written for Nisan, but it wasn't actually given the receipt until Tishrei. So therefore everything in between becomes problematic regarding the sale of this ksuba. So there's three answers. O mishum de meicher shtar chayiv umachol machol mitoch should yada limchol loichashinan. So he said that since it's in her hand, she has the ability to be meichel alone, so therefore we're not chayash of this. Oh, kashishtar ksuba yatsa b'tachas yada. She's holding on to the ksuba, and therefore she's holding on to the ksuba. It's not possible that someone else has it. If someone else had it, then she wouldn't have the ksuba. Oh, mishum sheshuver b'zmanu tarif. Or, as we said, that we don't worry about between Nisan and Tishrei. We don't care about when it was given. We still always follow the way it was written and signed, and therefore, if it was written and therefore signed in Nisan, that's when it all takes place. Adkan.